They took their step. Now it's my turn. The spanner slid from my oily grasp and banged onto the cement surface of my workshop, ringing out like a lightning strike in the abrupt hush through the narrow divider splitting my repair area from our cooking space. I could catch my 17-year-old girl Emily's tone keen and slicing like a knife. Heavens, Mother, I can't fathom you tolerated him for this long. He's such a failure. At least now you're at last obtaining what you merit. I stiffened under the raised cover of Mrs. Patterson's old-fashioned Buick, my palm still gripping the charging unit I'd been battling with for the previous 60 minutes. The scent of engine lubricant and corrosion packed my nose, but couldn't conceal the sour flavor that abruptly surged into my mouth. My title is Jack Morrison, and I've been repairing vehicles in this industrial decline suburb of Milltown for 22 years. I wed my spouse, Susan, when we were both youthful and foolish, back when she regarded my rough palms and working-class confidence as appealing rather than humiliating. Now she's a legal assistant at Henderson & Associates, the most ostentatious legal practice in our tiny patch of nowhere, and I'm still the fellow who soils his nails for a paycheck. Darling, lower your tone. Susan's tone floated to the divider, but there was no genuine worry in it, just the habitual wariness of somebody who's grown accustomed to leading a secret existence. I cleaned my palms on my overalls and edged nearer to the entrance, linking the workshop to the residence. The discussion was turning intriguing, and after 18 years of wedlock, I discovered that the most crucial matters were always uttered when folks believed I couldn't overhear them. Why? He's likely too occupied tinkering with his gadgets to detect anything. Anyway, Emily chuckled, and the noise was like claws on a slate. Moreover, everybody at the institution already knows about you and Brian. Jenny's mother spotted you two at that lounge in the city center last Friday. My bloodstream shifted to frozen liquid in my arteries. Brian Hoffman, property dealer supreme with his flawlessly bright smile and his luxury sedan, they delivered to my facility precisely once before concluding I wasn't refined enough for his valued European craftsmanship. Brian, whom my spouse asserted was merely a companion from her recent fitness center enrollment. Brian, who evidently had been performing far more than assisting her during her Friday evening stretching classes. Jenny's mother ought to attend to her own affairs, Susan remarked. But I could detect the anxiety seeping into her tone now, and you need to be more cautious about what you utter. Your father isn't dim, even if he behaves like it at times. Appreciate the endorsement, dear. I retreated from the entrance and went back to Buick, but my palms were trembling now, and the basic job of swapping a charging unit abruptly seemed unfeasible. My thoughts were speeding, linking points I'd been too oblivious or too credulous to notice earlier. The extended evenings at the workplace that had grown more common over the prior 6 months. The fresh attire she'd been purchasing. Costly items that didn't fit our finances or her typical restrained fashion. The manner she'd begun attending the fitness center devotedly every Friday night, always returning with her hair impeccably arranged and her cosmetics renewed, like she devoted more effort before a reflector than on an exercise machine. And the telephone discussions. Lord, the telephone discussions that always appear to conclude suddenly whenever I entered the space. I completed the charging unit swap on automatic pilot, my palms operating from ingrained habit, while my mind swirled through the consequences of what I just caught. By the moment I caught Susan's vehicle exiting the driveway, likely en route to another customer appointment, I had reached my choice. If my spouse was being unfaithful to me, I was going to uncover it, and if she believed I was too dim to detect, well, she was about to discover just how mistaken she could be. 3 days afterward, I was seated in my pal Gord's punching gym, sipping a brew, and observing him strike the heavy sack like it was indebted to him. Gordy McCready had been my closest buddy since secondary school, back when he was a top amateur boxer, and I was the youth who maintained his bike operational. Now he possessed this dilapidated gym on the rough part of town, coaching aspiring bruisers and former combatants who still thought they had one final chance of fame. So, allow me to grasp this correctly, Gordy stated between sequences, his breathing emerging in brief bursts. Your spouse has been behaving oddly. Your girl believes you're A, and you wish to act as a personal investigator. I don't wish to act anything, I replied, taking a lengthy swig from my container. I wish to learn the facts. Gordy halted, striking the sack, and faced me. He was nearing 50, like me, but he still appeared capable of lasting 10 bouts with fellows half his years. His visage was marked from excessive battles, but his gaze was keen and clever. "Jack, are you certain you want to unlock this container of troubles? Occasionally unawareness truly is joy." "Too delayed for that," I replied. "I already caught sufficient to realize something's occurring. Now I require knowing how severe it is." He nodded gradually, comprehending. "What do you require?" "Assistance with some monitoring gear. Nothing elaborate, just a compact lens I can conceal in an in-chamber." Gord's brows rose. "Mercy, Jack, you're truly committing fully, aren't you?" "She believes I'm too dim to unravel it," I stated, and I could detect the fury entering my tone. Let's observe how clever she truly is. The following Friday night, I was stationed across the road from the Milltown Motor Inn, a shabby small spot that leased chambers by the hour and didn't probe much. I'd passed the afternoon installing a tiny cordless lens in chamber 237, the identical chamber where Susan had been meeting her partner, based on the billing records I'd located concealed in her ornament container. At 7:30 p.m., precisely on time, Susan's silver Honda entered the lot. She remained in the vehicle for a few moments, examining her cosmetics in the vacuum reflector before proceeding to chamber 237 with the assured gait of somebody who'd made this journey numerous times prior. 15 minutes afterward, Brian's luxury sedan arrived beside her vehicle. I observed through field glasses as he exited, adjusted his impeccably groomed hair, and rapped on entrance. When it swung open, I glimpsed my spouse's outline framed in the threshold, illuminated from behind by the inexpensive illumination. She was clad in a crimson gown I'd never viewed before, something that clung to her forms and revealed more flesh than she revealed to me in years. They embraced lengthy and fervently right there in the threshold, where anybody could observe them. Then the entrance shut, and I was left seated in my pickup, staring at the pulled drapes and sensing like somebody had plunged into my torso and torn out my core. But I wasn't finished yet, not by a great distance. I extracted my telephone and rang the number for Milltown Blooms, a nearby dispatch service that remained open late to serve remorseful spouses and 11th-hour admirers. "Hello. I'd like to dispatch sparkling wine and sweets to chamber 237 at the Motor Inn," I stated, maintaining my tone stable. "And I'd like to add a note." "Certainly. What would you like the note to state?" I grinned, and it likely wasn't a pleasing look. "Grin. You're being recorded live." 20 minutes afterward, I observed the dispatch lad rap on the entrance. I saw Brian respond, bewilderment evident on his visage, even from across the road. Then I saw him peruse the note, and his look shifted to something between alarm and fury. The entrance banged closed, and through my field glasses, I could glimpse the silhouettes shifting frantically behind the drapes. They were likely hunting for the lens, but I concealed it effectively, integrated into what appeared like a fire alarm that matched the others in the chamber. I ignited my pickup and headed residence, humming lightly to myself. Stage 1 was finished. Now arrived the enjoyable segment. At 9:45 p.m., I dispatched a text communication to our household group conversation. Me, Susan, Emily, and Susan's folks. The communication included a basic hyperlink and the phrases, "Figured you might find this engaging." Then I reclined and awaited my telephone to erupt. The initial ring came from Susan's mother at 9:47 p.m. I allowed it to reach message storage. The second ring came from Emily at 9:48. I allowed that one to pass, too. By 10:15, I had 17 unanswered rings and 43 text communications, spanning from puzzled to irritated to utterly enraged. Susan didn't return, residence that night or the following morning. She eventually entered through our front entrance at 2:30 p.m. on Saturday, appearing like she matured 5 years in the past 18 hours. Her impeccably arranged hair was disheveled, her cosmetics was smudged, and her crimson gown was creased past salvage. "We need to converse," she stated, her tone. "Do we?" I was seated at the cooking table, serenely consuming a sandwich and perusing the periodical like it was any other Saturday midday. Appears like everything's quite evident to me. "Jack, please permit me to clarify." I glanced up at her, then truly examined her, and for an instant I nearly pitted her. Nearly. Clarify what, Susan. Clarify how you've been intimate with your fitness companion in a low-cost inn for the past 6 months. Clarify how you've been deceiving me to my face every Friday night. Or perhaps you wish to clarify how you and our girl have been mocking what a pitiful failure I am in private. She recoiled like I'd struck her. You don't comprehend. Brian and we never intended for this to occur. It just conserve it. I cut in. I've caught this address in a dozen films. It just occurred. It didn't signify anything. I never wished to harm you. Did I overlook any of the standards? Droplets began streaming down her face, but I sensed nothing. The fellow who would have consoled her, who would have attempted to resolve matters, who would have faulted himself for not being sufficient. That fellow had perished somewhere between catching my girl label me a failure and witnessing my spouse embrace another fellow in an threshold. What do you desire? She inquired eventually. I desire separation. I stated plainly. I desire you out of my residence, and I desire to ensure everyone in this dismal little town knows precisely what sort of lady you truly are. Her droplets halted suddenly, and I glimpsed something chilly and scheming flash in her gaze. You believe you can ruin me? You believe anyone minds what some small-town repairman has to utter about anything? We'll observe, I stated. She aligned herself, and abruptly she appeared more like the lady who'd been deceiving me for all these months. You have no clue who you're challenging, Jack. I'm not some defenseless homemaker you can dominate. I have contacts, influential contacts, like Brian, like Tina Martinez. She's an attorney, and she's extremely skilled at her role. By the time she's finished with you, you'll be fortunate to retain this residence, let alone your valued workshop. I caught a Tina Martinez. She was a prominent lawyer who'd relocated to Milltown about 5 years prior, supposedly from a major city. She focused on separation cases and had a fame for being merciless. She was also evidently one of Susan's new associates from her career connection circle. Proceed, I stated. Susan grinned, and it wasn't pleasing. You always were too dim to realize when you were defeated. After she departed, I remained in my cooking area and pondered what she'd stated. Tina Martinez. The title was recognizable for some cause, but I couldn't quite pinpoint why. It would surface to me ultimately. Meanwhile, I had tasks to perform. If Susan wished to compete fiercely, I was more than willing to comply. But she was about to learn that underestimating your rival is the quickest path to losing a conflict. I grasped my telephone and rang Gordy. Recall how you stated, I might not wish to unlock this container, Troubles? Yeah, well, it's unlocked now, and I'm going to require your assistance converting it into a weapon. Monday dawn delivered separation documents, served by a messenger who appeared like he'd prefer to be elsewhere. I acknowledged him with a grin that made the poor youth step rearward. The documents were detailed. I had to award Tina Martinez recognition for that. Susan was demanding half of all. The residence, the workshop, my instruments, even my pickup. She was also alleging emotional suffering and seeking spousal support based on her diminished income potential due to the shock of having her seclusion breached. The lady had courage. I grant her that. I motored to Henderson and Associates to present my reply. The legal office was in the finest structure in downtown Milltown, all crystal and metal, attempting to appear significant in a town that hadn't witnessed significance since the metal plant shut in 1987. The front desk attendant was a youthful lady with ideal smile and a rehearsed expression. I'm regretful, Mr. Morrison, but Mrs. Martinez is in tribunal today. Would you like to depart a note? Just provide her this, I stated, passing over a packet. Inside was a solitary page with 5 phrases. Challenge accepted. Your turn, advocate. I was midway back to my pickup when I caught somebody shouting my title. I rotated to view Tom Bradley, my previous top client, and the fellow who'd suggested my assistance to half the town over the years. Tom possessed Bradley Construction, and his group of labor vehicles had kept my workshop occupied for the better part of a decade. Jack. Hey, pleased I reached you, Tom stated, but his look didn't align with his phrases. He appeared uneasy like a fellow about to convey poor tidings. What's happening, Tom? Listen, I caught about what occurred with you and Susan, and I just wish to say I'm regretful, pal. Separation is difficult. Thanks, I stated, awaiting the other part to fall. The issue is, Jack, some of my crew have been conversing, and with all this turmoil and everything, they're concerned about delivering their transports to somebody who might be, unfocused. I gazed at him. Are you dismissing me, Tom? It's not individual, Jack. It's just commerce. Perhaps after matters calm down. After matters calm down, I echoed. Correct. Tom had the grace to appear embarrassed. I'm regretful, Jack. I truly am. No, you're not, I stated. You're frightened. Frightened that linking with me might damage your valued image. Well, here's some complimentary guidance, Tom. When you're fearful of your own silhouette, you end up residing in obscurity. I ascended into my pickup and motored off, leaving Tom positioned in the lot appearing like he'd been struck in the gut. But I wasn't finished with him, not by a great distance. The remainder of the week delivered more of the identical. 3 additional clients terminated their maintenance agreements. The fellows at Murphy's Pub, where I'd been consuming Friday night Alice for 15 years, abruptly found excuses to evade my spot. Even Mrs. Hanks, my 70-year-old adjacent, who'd been delivering me homemade treats every holiday since I settled in the area, traversed the road when she spotted me laboring in my lawn. By Friday night, I was seated solitary in my workshop, encircled by partially completed fixed tasks and vacant ale containers, when Gordy appeared with a half-dozen and a serious look. Caught you dropped a Bradley deal, he stated, positioning into the collapsible seat I maintained for guests. Among others, I stated, amusing how rapidly 20 years of camaraderie vanishes when matters get complicated. Folks are followers, Jack. They trail the group. Yeah. Well, perhaps it's time somebody reminded them what occurs when the followers anger the predator. Gordy lifted a brow. That doesn't resemble the Jack Morrison I recognize. The Jack Morrison you recognize was a pushover, I stated. He trusted in competing justly, being truthful, handling folks with esteem. Observe where it led him. So, what are you going to perform? I grinned. And this time, I didn't mind if it was pleasing or not. I'm going to provide this town precisely what it desires. They desire a scoundrel. They're going to obtain one, Jack. They believe I'm the antagonist for revealing my unfaithful spouse. They believe I'm the issue because I won't silently vanish and allow everyone to act like nothing occurred. Acceptable. If I'm going to be portrayed as a scoundrel in this small play, I might as well perform the role correctly. I rose and proceeded to my work table, where I'd been drafting schemes for the past 3 days. Schemes that would make my spouse and her partner regret they'd ever caught the title Jack Morrison. What's that? Gordy inquired, peering over my arm. That, I stated, is how you convert a repairman into a fiend. The initial stage of my scheme activated the subsequent Monday dawn. I'd passed the weekend collecting data, and what I uncovered was superior than I'd anticipated. Brian Hoffman, it emerged, was not the prosperous property tycoon he feigned to be. His firm was faltering. He was delayed on his luxury sedan installments, and his primary patron was a building firm that cared greatly about their representatives upholding a wholesome public persona. I began with his vehicle, the stunning black luxury sedan that he was so boastful of, stationed every dawn in the area behind his office structure. It only required 10 minutes with a container of aerosol color to alter it from an emblem of achievement into a mobile advertisement, proclaiming his ethical elasticity. Unfaithful in vivid crimson letters across the front cover, Family Destroyer on the operator's side panel, and my individual top choice, Inquire about my wedded companion across the back glass. I was far away by the time Brian uncovered his vehicle transformation, but Mrs. Hanks, who'd evidently decided I was worth conversing with again, was pleased to inform me on the particulars. According to her, Brian's yelling could be caught 3 blocks distant. Stage 2 entailed a bit of inventive pipe work. Brian resided in Milltown Gardens, an upscale residence complex that served youthful experts who wished to feel notable. The structure had a central postal setup, which simplified it for me to dispatch a unique parcel to every tenant. The parcel included duplicated copies of Brian's billing records, the ones displaying routine fees at the Motor Inn, along with a courteous memo explaining that they're adjacent and for be enjoyed passing his nights with other men's spouses. I added my spouse's title and employment details just to be complete. By Wednesday, Brian's property owner had received sufficient grievances to initiate removal actions, but I was just beginning. Thursday dawn, I visited Pinnacle Development, Brian's primary patron. I didn't arrive as Jack Morrison, furious spouse. I arrived as Jack Morrison, worried resident, with a folder packed with proof about their staff's after-hours pursuits. Mr. Henderson, I stated to the firm head, I figured you ought to know that one of your representatives has been participating in conduct that might cast poorly on your firm's image. Richard Henderson was a slender, anxious fellow who constructed his enterprise on the idea that controversy was harmful for transactions. He examined my proof with increasing concern. This is very troubling, Mr. Morrison. Very troubling indeed. I figured you ought to know, I stated. A firm like yours with such elevated criteria wouldn't wish to be linked with this kind of conduct. By Thursday midday, Brian Hoffman was without employment. Friday delivered the masterpiece. I'd reserved the finest for final. I uncovered that Brian had been utilizing a firm billing card for his instays, listing them as patron amusement costs. This wasn't just disloyalty, it was deception, and deception was something the authorities viewed gravely. I didn't contact the authorities immediately. That would have been too apparent. Instead, I submitted an unnamed alert to the state prosecutor's office, complete with duplicates of the billing records and in vouchers. Allow them to reach their own findings. By Friday night, Brian Hoffman's existence was in shambles. No position, no residence, no vehicle worth operating, an ongoing probe for billing card deception, all in the course of 5 days. But I wasn't finished yet, not even near. Saturday dawn, I received a telephone ring from Tina Martinez. Mr. Morrison, I believe we need to convene. Do we? My patron is ready to be fair about the separation agreement if you're prepared to halt your intimidation effort against Mr. Hoffman. I chuckled. Intimidation? I haven't intimidated anyone. I've merely ensured that the facts about Mr. Hoffman's personality became common awareness. You've demolished his existence. He demolished mine initially. I'm just repaying the courtesy. There was an extended silence. You don't know who you're confronting, Mr. Morrison. Amusing, I stated. I was just pondering the same about you. After I disconnected, I remained in my cooking area and pondered that discussion. There had been something in Tina Martinez's tone, something individual. This wasn't just about defending a patron. This was individual for her. That's when it struck me. Tina Martinez. I recognize that title because it wasn't always Martinez. 5 years prior, when she first relocated to Milltown, it had been Tina Kowalski. And 15 years before that, Tina Kowalski had been my enterprise associate in a workshop we possessed together on the south part of town. The workshop that had collapsed because she'd been diverting funds from the enterprise ledger to finance her legal education. The workshop that had cost me my life funds when I'd been compelled to purchase her share to evade insolvency. The workshop that had instructed me never to rely on an associate again. Tina Martinez hadn't arrived in Milltown by chance. She'd arrived here for retribution, and my unfaithful spouse had just provided her the ideal chance to achieve it. I grinned. This was becoming engaging. The ultimate showdown arrived at the yearly Milltown Neighborhood Street Festival, a charming small custom where the entire town assembled in Riverside Park to feign we were all one large content clan. It was the ideal location for what I had arranged. Open, heavily visited, and fitted with an audio setup that could extend to every nook of the park. I reached early, attired in my finest trousers and a tidy top, hauling a collapsible seat and a chill container packed with ale like any other local, prepared to relish a Saturday midday in the sunlight. What I didn't publicize was a folder concealed under my seat, packed with proof that would make this a street festival to recall. Susan reached an hour afterward with Tina Martinez. Both of them attired like they were joining a private club event instead of a local grill. They located a place near the performance platform and arranged their own seats, evidently placing themselves to issue some kind of declaration. Brian appeared 20 minutes following that, appearing like a fellow who'd been through torment and hadn't fully emerged the other end. His luxury sedan was in the facility getting recolored, so he was operating a worn rental vehicle that likely cost him more per day than he was earning now that he was without work. He glanced around anxiously before linking with Susan and Tina, evidently uneasy with the open environment. The initial few hours elapsed calmly enough. There were the standard events, a baseball match, face art for the youngsters, a soaking stall operated by helpers from the fire squad. I enacted my role, conversing with adjacents, purchasing draw tickets, behaving like a fellow who was attempting to advance with his existence after a challenging separation. But I was observing, always observing and awaiting my instant. It arrived at 4:30 during the neighborhood declaration section of the schedule. Mayor Davidson was at the speaker appreciating various backers and helpers when I rose, and began proceeding toward performance platform. "Pardon me, Mayor Davidson," I shouted loudly enough for all to catch. "I'd like to utter a few phrases, if that's acceptable." Davidson appeared bewildered, but surrendered the speaker. The assembly quieted into anticipatory hush, likely figuring I was going to issue some kind of open regret or appeal for compassion. They were mistaken. "People, I want to appreciate you all for attending today." I started, my tone projecting plainly across the park. "It's wonderful to witness our neighborhood uniting like this. It recalls me why I've been honored to name Milltown residents for the past 20 years. I could glimpse Susan and Tina swapping concerned looks. Brian was glancing around like he wished to flee. Now, I know there's been some chatter lately about my individual circumstances. I proceeded. "Some of you have caught that my spouse and I are separating. That's accurate. What you might not know is the reason." "Jack, don't perform this," Susan shouted, but I disregarded her. "You see, I uncovered that my spouse has been conducting a liaison with Brian Hoffman over there." I directed straight at Brian, who flushed and began to rise. They've been convening at the Motor Inn every Friday night for the past 6 months, utilizing firm billing cards to fund their small amorous escapes. The assembly was utterly quiet now, absorbed in every phrase. "But that's not the captivating part," I stated. "The captivating part is what transpired when I uncovered. Instead of regretting, instead of attempting to resolve matters, my spouse decided to attempt to demolish me. She engaged an attorney, Tina Martinez, whose positioned right over there, to seize everything I possess and leave me with zilch. Tina was rising now, yelling something about defamation, but I continued speaking. What makes this truly intriguing is that Miss Martinez isn't just any attorney. She's somebody with an individual vendetta against me. Somebody who's been awaiting 15 years to obtain retribution for an enterprise arrangement that soured. Somebody who viewed my spouse's disloyalty as the ideal chance to complete what she initiated all those years ago. I extended into my folder and extracted a pile of documents. I've got proof here that demonstrates Miss Martinez has been scheming this for months. Financial logs, electronic mails, even a capture of her instructing my spouse precisely how to conceal resources during the separation proceedings. That final part was a fabrication, but it resonated well, and the assembly was devouring it. "But here's the finest part," I stated, beaming now. While Miss Martinez was occupied plotting my ruin, she committed one small error. She began intimate with her patron's partner. The inhalation from the assembly was audible. Susan became pale as paper. Brian appeared like he was going to vomit, and Tina Martinez appeared like she wished to perform murder. That's correct, people. The attorney who's supposed to be safeguarding my spouse's concerns has been conducting her own liaison with Brian Hoffman. I've gotten vouchers, billing records, even some charming images that a personal detective captured last Tuesday midday. I raised the folder. "Anyone wish to view them?" "You scoundrel!" Tina yelled, charging toward the platform. "You fabricating scoundrel!" But Gordy was there to block her, his large palms mild but solid as he directed her away from the speaker. "Now, I know what some of you are pondering," I proceeded. "You're pondering this is all very improper, broadcasting soiled secrets in open like this. And you're correct. It is improper. But you know what's more improper? An entire town rejecting a fellow because his spouse decided to betray him. Companions deserting him because controversy makes them uneasy. People who recognize him for 20 years abruptly deciding he's not worth their effort." I gazed straight at Tom Bradley, who was positioned near the rear of the assembly, appearing like he wished to evaporate. "So, Here's what's going to transpire, I stated. I'm going to provide this town precisely what it merits. You desired turmoil, you've obtained it. You desired to select alliances. Well, now you know what all the alliances truly resemble. I returned the speaker to Mayor Davidson and proceeded off the performance platform, leaving disorder in my aftermath. Susan was weeping. Brian was disputing with somebody from the assembly who was labeling him titles. And Tina Martinez was yelling at Gordy to release her. I reached halfway to my pickup before Tom Bradley reached me. "Jack, hold on," he shouted. "I owe you a regret." I rotated to confront him. "Do you?" I was mistaken to terminate our agreement. I allowed dread to dictate my choices. "Yes, you did. I'd like to correct it. All of us would." I glanced beyond him and glimpsed a small cluster of my previous clients and companions nearing, all of them bearing looks of embarrassment and remorse. "Would you?" I inquired. "We were mistaken, Jack. We should have supported you." I nodded gradually. "Yes, you should have, but you didn't. And that informs me everything I need to know about what your camaraderie was truly valued. Jack, please. I'm not interested in seasonal companions, Tom. I'm not interested in people who only back me when it's suitable for them. You made your selection when matters got tough. Now I'm making mine." I ascended into my pickup and motored off, leaving them positioned in the lot. In my backview reflector, I could glimpse the assembly still clustered around performance platform, likely debating what they'd just seen for years ahead. When I reached residence, I found Emily seated on my front steps, her gaze reddened from weeping. "Father," she stated as I ascended the stairs, "I'm regretful. I'm so regretful for everything I uttered." I positioned next to her. "Are you regretful because you intended it or because you were exposed?" She was silent for a lengthy instant. "Both, I suppose. I was furious at you for humiliating Mother, but I didn't know about the other matters, about the attorney and the funds and everything. Your mother made her selections. Emily, they weren't my responsibility, and they weren't yours. Can I come reside with you? I don't wish to remain with Mother anymore." I placed my arm around her shoulders. "We'll resolve it." That night, I remained in my workshop in ale and pondered what had transpired. I triumphed in a manner. My adversaries were demolished. My image was reinstated, and my girl was residence where she belonged. But triumph had arrived at a cost. I'd become precisely what Susan had labeled me, a scoundrel, somebody who competed unfairly, who struck low, who didn't mind side effects as long as he obtained his retribution. The amusing thing was I was fine with that. Occasionally being a scoundrel is the only path to triumph. Occasionally you have to be prepared to perform what the champions won't. Occasionally you have to accept the shadows to locate your path back to the brightness. I lifted my ale in a pretended salute to my missing adversaries. "Appreciate the lesson," I stated to the vacant workshop. It's been revealing. 3 months afterward, the separation was completed. Susan obtained nothing. The premarital agreement I demanded 20 years prior turned out to be unbreakable, and her disloyalty invalidated most of her demands anyway. She relocated to another region with what remained of her pride in her banking account. Brian Hoffman admitted to billing card deception and received 2 years suspended sentence and a substantial penalty. And Tina Martinez was stripped of her license after the state legal group probed her behavior during our matter. I retained the residence, the workshop, and my girl. Tom Bradley and the others came groveling back, offering regrets and fresh agreements. But I rejected them all. I discovered that I didn't require companions who only supported me when it was suitable. I had Gordy. I had Emily, and I had the fulfillment of knowing that I'd outplayed them all at their own contest. People in town still traverse the road when they spot me approaching, but it's not out of sympathy anymore. It's out of esteem and perhaps a bit of apprehension. They know now that Jack Morrison isn't somebody you wish to oppose. They know that the quiet repairman who mends their vehicles and attends to his own matters is capable of things they never envisioned, and that's acceptable with me. Amusing thing about being the scoundrel. Occasionally it's the only path to triumph. But there was one more twist waiting. My kids, Emily and my younger son Tim, who'd been away on that vacation with Susan's lover Brian, had returned home earlier that week. Susan had arranged a trip as a family bonding excuse, dragging them along to some beach resort with Brian, thinking it would normalize her new life. They'd been gone for 10 days, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing back in Milltown. When they pulled up in Brian's rental car, his BMW long gone, Emily stepped out first, lugging her suitcase, her face pale. Tim followed, looking confused, clutching a stuffed dolphin he'd won at some arcade. But the moment they spotted me standing in the garage doorway, tools in hand, grease on my shirt, something shifted. Emily dropped her bag. Tim froze. "Dad," Emily whispered, her voice cracking. What happened to the house?" "And Mom said, she said you were the one who—" They panicked. Full on. Emily's eyes darted to the garage sign. I'd repainted myself. "Morrison Repairs. Cross me and pay." Tim started crying, backing toward the car like I was a stranger. They'd heard Susan's version on the trip. How I was a monster, the one who'd ruined everything with my obsession. Brian had played the hero, spoiling them with ice cream and games, whispering how I was unstable. But now, seeing me calm and control, with the town whispering my name in fear and awe, reality hit them. They'd chosen the wrong side on that vacation. And as they stood there, trembling, I realized the final piece. My own kids had gone willingly with my cheating wife's lover. Upon returning, they panicked when they saw the man who'd won, the villain who protected what was his.